Hey crystal lovers, Ashley here with the Love and Light School of Crystal Therapy, and I wanted to chat a little bit with you about azurite. This is such a beautiful crystal. It's been one of my favorites for a long time, and I think that's because we don't often get to see the intense blue of azurite in nature. In nature, we have lots of reds and pinks and yellows and greens, but the blues are a little bit more limited, right? Even if you think about flowers, maybe the flowers in your garden, as I know I'm thinking about right now as we approach springtime, we have all these amazing colors in nature, but blue is something truly special because we just don't see it as often. So I wanted to share a little bit about azurite today and show you a few of my favorite pieces of azurite that are in my crystal collection. This piece here is just a stunner, and it's actually mixed with some malachite, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, why this is. So I just wanted to invite you in, welcome you, and talk a little bit about this crystal. So azurite, if you're not super familiar with it, is obviously this deep indigo blue, this azure blue. This is where we get the term azure blue from. Monoclinic mineral, and it's usually best known for its association with intuition, with psychic awareness and psychic skills, and for its connection to the brow, to the inner eye. So I always like to come up with kind of an affirmation to use along with my crystals, and azurite is one that just always kind of speaks to me. Always speaks to me. And so the affirmation that came through for me for azurite is this: I accept and trust. I accept and trust my inner guidance, and I embrace my intuition and psychic skills. So this is really about learning to accept that you are intuitive, that you have intuition, right? And also that you can learn to trust that. Because sometimes we know that we're intuitive, but we second guess ourselves. Azurite is such a good stone for kind of helping you overcome that self-doubt when it comes to your intuition. And I love this crystal so much, one of my favorites. So azurite is known, in addition to working with your intuition, for enhancing your connection to the earth. And if you think about this, look at a piece like this where there's azurite and malachite kind of co-mingling, right? You have these together. Does that not remind you of kind of a bird's eye view of the earth, where you have the blues and the greens of the land and the waters kind of swirling together? And you get to see the beauty that's created when these two minerals come together. And so it is very much this beautiful earthy energy, right? It's also excellent for facilitating the growth and development of your nurturing qualities. So think about how the earth, how Mother Earth nurtures us, sustains us, supports us. So this crystal kind of takes from that and helps create a little bit of that in us. It helps us want to nurture others, to be supportive, to be of service. It also offers protection. It's a very protective crystal, particularly of your energy body, and so it works great for protection during astral travel, during dream work, during meditation. So it's a very protective crystal as well. It also is known to protect travelers, so not just protection for your energy body, but protection while traveling. It, as I mentioned, aids in this acceptance of your intuition and your intuitive gifts and your psychic insights. So if that's something that you struggle with, if you know, I know I'm intuitive because I have these things come to me and I second guess them all the time. And let me know if that's you. Let me know in the comments, because I know this is something I used to struggle with all the time. And of course, on occasion, still do. But I think it's natural, right, for us to use our logical minds to second guess what our intuition is telling us. And what's really important is not that we choose one or the other or one over the other, either way, but that we work with both together, that we're logical and rational and reasonable, but that where we don't have all the information and where we can't know all the information, we allow our intuition to help guide us, right? For making decisions in our lives, for working toward more clarity, right? And azurite can be so helpful for that. Now, it also promotes truth, and this meaning you finding your personal truth, anchoring into your personal truth, your authenticity, the realness of your experience, but not in a way that's rooted in ego, but in a way that is truly rooted with authentic truth as it exists in the universe. It's also about enhancing your connection to the universe, to the cosmos, to the energies that surround you. So to other people, to places, it's this energy of connection. And again, I think that's because of the way that it helps us really tune into earth connections. When we can feel connected in our role and our place here on earth, then of course it makes it easier for us to feel connected to one another, for us to really truly start to understand one another and take ourselves sometimes outside of our individual perspectives and lived experiences and start to see things from other perspectives so that we can grow, right? It's really great for that. It's also about honing and further refining your intuition and your psychic skills. So maybe you know that you're intuitive, but this is something you'd like to develop. Well, working with a crystal like azurite, and look at this beautiful piece from Morocco. It is just glittery and sparkly and amazingly beautiful. And it helps us further work on those skills, helps us further enhance and build those skills related to our intuition. It also helps you deepen your meditation, whether this is a more silent, still meditation, whether this is inner reflection or journal work, whether this is a really active meditation, like going for a walk and just being really present in your body, right? There are so many types of meditation that can really enrich our experiences of life, of living in the moment, of being present, of being in the here and now. And azurite is such a great reminder for helping you do that. I wish I could get my camera to focus a little bit better on these pieces for you. But they are so stunning, and I love azurite, and it forms in so many different ways, so many different energies. And it's just something I really love to work with in ways that really nourish and support me. And I hope that this will encourage you to work with azurite in your practice, right? And there's a little bit more that I'd like to share about azurite. There's a little bit more that I have to say, because this is a crystal that I have so enjoyed working with over the years. Now, azurite is, as I mentioned, always this deep indigo or azure blue. It is always this deep, beautiful blue color, but it can take on many different forms. So here is a piece of what's sometimes called velvet azurite. And if you can kind of see this crystal, it has almost a matte finish because it's formed in sort of a botrydal or bubble-like crust. And so this is velvet azurite. Now that's not a specific like variety of azurite. It's more a type of formation that occurs naturally within azurite. So this is velvet azurite. And then we have azurite concretions or nodules. So that's like these little sparkly ones. These are sometimes called azurite blueberries. I'm sure you can imagine why. They're very, very sweet. And look how vibrant that color is. And this is what I mean by one of the reasons I have kind of a love affair with this stone, because we don't get to see this blue very often in nature. So this beautiful, beautiful, brilliant blue, especially when it's in these little nuggets. These are called concretions or nodules or blueberries. You can also see this in kind of a cluster of those little nodules. This one is a bit like a pancake. That's common. Or a little bit more unusual are azurite geodes. Azurite geodes. How unique is that? I'm just curious if you've ever seen one of these. This is just something really special. You don't see them super often, but you do on occasion. And so these azurite geodes, I just love the way it kind of explodes out from the center, and you can see that lighter core and then the little crystals inside, and then it gets a little darker on the outside. And on the outside, it looks very similar to these nodules, but inside, sometimes there's a little geode, which is pretty cool. There's also azurite druze. So here we have, see the matrix stone, the host rock or parent rock, and on this side we have this brilliant druze, and so it's super glittery and crystalline, but it's just a fine crust over the surface of this stone. And I love this piece because it's actually multicolored. So you see some that's really deep and dark and has this kind of crystalline formation, and some that's a bit lighter. And so the color, the intensity of color, doesn't change the qualities or properties, but I think it changes the way that we experience the energy, right? The way that we experience that energy as really intense or a little bit softer and more subtle. There's also crystalline azurite, and so this is actually a cluster of what would be called etched or maybe even skeletal azurite crystals. And so this is a whole bunch of tiny little crystals all together in a cluster, but then azurite can also, on occasion, form large crystal points. And this is so intensely blue that it almost looks black. But if you get it up to a bright light, just around the tips where it's thinnest, you can actually see the blue color come through, and it's a deep, deep cobalt. And this piece is also from Morocco. And again, this is a monoclinic crystal. So the formation of this crystal, you can see it has a termination, but it's a little bit different shape than something that you might be used to seeing, like a quartz crystal or something like that. So this stone, beautiful azurite, is connected with the zodiac signs of Pisces and Aquarius and Gemini. So if you are a Pisces, an Aquarius, or a Gemini, this stone will really enhance the positive attributes of your sign and kind of balance out some of those less than glamorous aspects of your sign, which we all have, right? Azurite's also connected with the elements of earth and water. And again, you can see that earthiness in a stone that the malachite comes through in. And I will share a little bit about why it often forms with malachite, I promise. I saw that question pop up. And here you can even see a little bit of chrysocolla forming together with that azurite and malachite. And the companion flower of azurite, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to highlight this stone now, the companion flower, the flower that I feel really embodies this energy and works well with azurite, is Grape Hyacinth. That's the common name. The botanical name is Muscaria. And so you probably see these, they're little tiny spring bulbs. And they create these little conical clusters of flowers that kind of look like an upside down cluster of grapes. And just like azurite, the Muscaria or grape hyacinth displays this brilliant blue that we don't often get to see in nature. So I feel like they're natural companions. And also, you know, Muscaria blooms in the spring. It comes up and at this time of new life and renewal and rejuvenation and connection with the earth, and that so much embodies the quality and energy of azurite, that these two really go well together. Now the companion crystal for azurite is Tangerine Calcite, and I actually just got this piece of Tangerine Calcite yesterday, so I wanted to show it some love and kind of show it off a little bit. I have a cluster and a palm stone of this as well, but this beautiful tower, this is Tangerine Calcite, and so it's a very deep, intensely orange variety of calcite. Most orange calcite, and I have a piece like across the room I'm looking at, I wish I had brought it over so I could show you side by side, but most orange calcite is more of a yellow-orange color, more like the color of orange juice, and so the tangerine is just a lot darker, much darker and deeper in its color. And these two crystals, they actually are complementary colors. So on the color wheel, they would be across from each other, the blue and the orange. And I love working with these because you have that deep earth connection, that be here now in the present moment kind of energy from azurite, and then you have something very energizing, very stimulating and exciting about the Tangerine Calcite. So I just think these make excellent companion stones. Now the companion essential oil to azurite I have found to be blue lotus. Blue lotus, again, bringing in that beautiful, vibrant blue energy into your work with your crystals. Now, azurite is most commonly found in Morocco, in Arizona, in Greece, Namibia, France, and Australia. And so most of the pieces that I've showed you here today come from Morocco. But like this piece, for example, this is from Arizona in the southwestern United States. And so it's not uncommon, no matter where you find azurite in the world, to have it paired with malachite. And then, you know, I forgot to show this piece. This one is kind of like a little pancake too, but it's a little disc, and these are sometimes called azurite suns, similar to the formation of a pyrite sun, where there are these radial crystals that grow out into a circle. So azurite itself, as I mentioned, is a member of the monoclinic crystal system, and it's found in this huge range of formations, as you can see. Honestly, there are so many different types. There's spherical nodules, and the crystals can be opaque or translucent. You can find them in clusters, tabular crystals, gem quality. There are just so many different types, and that's one of the things that's really interesting about this stone. But azurite is always found near copper deposits, near large copper deposits. And in fact, this blue color is from the oxidizing copper that's found within the mineral. So malachite is also a stone that you find that has large amounts of copper in it, that's found near copper deposits, and that's why you often find them together, because they just take a little bit different circumstances for them to take that copper and turn it into azurite, or take that copper and turn it into malachite, of course, naturally in the earth. And the same with chrysocolla, which there's, you know, a little bit of chrysocolla in some of these pieces as well. So depending on the circumstances and the other little trace minerals that are present and what's happening geologically, we can get azurite or malachite or chrysocolla, which is pretty exciting. Now, I talked about how azurite is really connected to our intuition and to our inner eye, right? Our third eye center. And so with that inner eye comes not just intuition, but creativity, creative expression, imagination. So this is about learning to really step into that energy and be in flow with the energy of expression, whatever form that may take. It's also great for cooperation and harmony in a group, right? Bringing that mutual understanding and compassion to a group experience. Now, there's a little bit I want to talk about in terms of the history of azurite. So azurite is a very soft stone on the Mohs hardness scale. It's pretty soft. it can be a little bit crusty or chalky, a little bit fragile, so you do have to handle it with some care. But because it is soft, throughout history, it was ground up for that blue pigment. So it's been used as a pigment, a paint, a color for a long time, and we see it in ancient manuscripts. We see it in paintings, right? Azurite being ground and used for that brilliant blue color, because again, that blue just isn't found very commonly in nature, and this is why it's so mesmerizing, right? I mean, look at this. If you were in the ancient world and you were an artist, a painter, a scribe, and you wanted to work with color and bring color and life into what you were creating, it makes sense you would be very attracted to working with the pigment from this stone. So for example, priests in ancient Egypt would actually grind this stone and create kind of a paint or a cosmetic from it, which we wouldn't want to do because copper is actually toxic, especially when we breathe it in or inhale it. And in large quantities, it can be dangerous. It's okay to handle something like this. I would recommend always washing your hands when you're done. It's not toxic to the touch, as some minerals are, but it's more if we breathe it in, if we ingest it, eat it, that it's problematic. So after you handle some rough azurite like this, just give your hands a good wash, which we're all doing lots of anyway right now. But these ancient Egyptian priests would take this stone, grind it, and use the pigment, and it said that they would actually paint the symbol of the Eye of Horus over their foreheads. So calling in that energy, right? Its connection with intuitive development goes back a long, long way. And in fact, people in ancient China actually referred to this as the stone of heaven. And it was believed that working with this stone and that color energy would help them find the heavenly gateway, or the path between heaven and earth. It's also a good crystal to have with you while you're meditating, as I mentioned, and it's said to help connect you with your guides and angels. And in fact, in more modern times, in the early 1900s, Edgar Cayce, who was known as the sleeping prophet, often spoke about this stone in his channeled readings. And he often called it lapis linguis, but highly recommended it for working with your intuition. And a lot of people assumed that he meant lapis lazuli, but he often used these interchangeably or sometimes clearly distinguished them from one another. And it's very interesting, the references that Edgar Cayce made to this crystal. I'm not like super big into channeling personally. I don't put like a lot of stock into it, but I find it interesting that it's something that came up so frequently. Now, I want to talk about one way to work with azurite. Now, as we've talked about, it's really great for enhancing your intuition. So you can place a piece, especially a nice flat piece like this, or a small tumbled stone, something like that, over your brow to connect with the universe in a deeper way. And this kind of acts as like a point of focus for you, right? You can also place it over your heart if you feel like your intuition is more connected with your heart space. You can place it over your belly or your gut if you feel like your intuition is more connected to gut feeling. Wherever you feel your intuition in your body. And I want you to think about this, like if your intuition is trying to give you information, maybe a warning, maybe a little bit of clarity or direction, where do you feel that in your body? And work with this stone in that place on your body. Because we all experience intuition differently. I very much feel mine in my gut, in my belly. And so it can be really helpful just to kind of hold that stone there too and breathe into that present moment to get connected. Now, when you do this, hold this crystal in this area. You may want to ask a question for something that you need clarity about. You may want to just ask for some general guidance from the universe, but just hold the crystal in place, breathe into the present moment, and ask for any intuitive messages or words or symbols to come through, and just let the crystal kind of assist you with that process, and it can be really helpful. Now, I did talk about how azurite contains a lot of copper, as do malachite and chrysocolla, so you do want to wash your hands after you've been working with it. Don't lick your fingers, don't rub your eye, just be cautious, right? With crystals, it's all about just being cautious, but it's totally okay to handle your crystals. You just don't want to like scratch a bunch of dust and breathe it in or put it in your mouth. That would not be good. But you do want to be cautious with using azurite in water, because some sources say that it can actually give off sulfur-like fumes when it's immersed in water or exposed to damp conditions. So keep it dry, wash your hands well after you're done working with it, and you'll be just fine. So that is everything that I have to say about azurite for today. I hope that you enjoy working with it as we move into the spring. And I did see a few questions kind of pop up here while I was going through and talking a little bit. And so there were some questions about where you can order azurite crystals. Well, I actually have a blog post on my website. So if you head to loveandlightschool.com/blog, you will get to our blog. And if you put in the search the word or the phrase best places to buy crystals, you'll get a post that will come up in the search results. And it's a list of the best places to buy crystals online. And I think there are over 40 different places there. Most of them, well, probably about half of them are places I've personally purchased crystals from and had good experiences with, including my own shop, Mimosa Books and Gifts. You can find us online at mimosaspirit.com. So that's a great place to start. I know we have azurite, but it's not yet listed on the website. It will be pretty soon. We're working on that. In the meantime, you can feel free to send us a message through our contact form or email us. But on that blog post, the best places to buy crystals online, over at my website, loveandlightschool.com, you'll find so many places. And most of them I've worked with myself. Those that I haven't have been referred to me for our list by our Love and Light students, by colleagues of mine. And so it's a pretty good list of places to buy crystals from. I will say I can't vouch for 100% of everything that's on all those different sites. There are going to be some man-made stones. There might be some dyed stones. There might be some heat-treated stones. What I usually look for is that at least those things are disclosed when they are presented, so that you know exactly what you're buying. So with azurite, though, it's not commonly faked. The biggest problem that I see with azurite is in jewelry, or occasionally in things like pendulums. They may say that it's azurite malachite, right? Like we've been looking at here, that combo stone, but in fact, it's reconstituted. So it's malachite or azurite that's been chopped up or ground up and mixed with like a resin or plastic basically and put back together, and it looks very much chunky and squarish. I don't know, it looks like usually little pieces of squarish malachite in like a blue background. Notice how this is so swirling, it kind of swirls together. The fakey fake stuff is like very angular. That's kind of the best way to describe it. And so it really kind of stands out. And if you do a Google image search, I'm sure for something like fake malachite with azurite or fake azurite malachite, you'll find some pictures of some of those fakes. And it's not very attractive when you see the real stuff versus that kind of made reconstituted stuff. It starts to become pretty obvious once your eye is trained, so just know to look for that. Other than that, azurite's not really a commonly faked stone. It's not one of the ones that we normally have to worry too much about. The only way I've seen it is that kind of azurite malachite combo when we're looking at like pendants or pendulums or things like that. So just kind of be cautious, right? Know what to look for that way when you're purchasing. And other than that, like, happy shopping. I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you enjoy finding how this crystal can work for you and discovering more about it. And I do want to address one more question, and I'll try and keep this one really short, but someone here asked, how did I get into crystals? I have loved crystals since I was a little girl. I've told this story many, many times, so I'll try and keep it short and sweet, but basically, when I was young, I was really fortunate and got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents. And my grandfather, who is still with us today, he's like 93 years old, he had a love of minerals, but he was more of like a collector and very, very scientific minded. But we used to spend a lot of time in his study, and he'd tell me about his different crystals and where they came from and what they were good for. And it really sparked an interest in me as a kid, and I really loved minerals and I loved learning about them. And when I was in 3rd grade, he actually gave me a book that was like the Smithsonian Institute Guide to Crystals and Minerals. And that was the first place I ever read about how crystals could be more than just these pretty things, right? I read about how people in ancient civilizations like in Egypt or Rome or Greece worked with crystals, right? And thought that they had these attributes or qualities, and that became immensely interesting to me. And I, sort of disconnected from that a little bit in my teen years, and in my early 20s, I really reconnected with that interest and started learning everything that I could about them. So I read tons of books, and I've taken well over 100 different crystal classes, like well over. It might be approaching 200 now. I'm always learning new things about crystals. And I took my first professional training about crystals, and from there, I just knew this was what I had to do for a living, is what I wanted to do for a career, what I wanted to work with and spend my days with. And it's been immensely rewarding. It's been something that's really changed my life and had a hugely positive impact for me. And to be able to just give back 1/10 of that to my students and to those of you who tune into my videos or listen to my podcast is something that I'm just truly grateful for and that I really enjoy. So to all of you who are watching, thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to stop and hang out and learn a little bit about azurite today. So until I see you again, many crystal blessings.